Hello, everyone. Today we have a very special treat. I'm sitting with the beautiful, intelligent, funny, just all these wonderful things, Charla Horn. She is, if you did not know, a mental health therapist based in Jackson, Mississippi. She has always been passionate about advocating for mental health, especially increasing awareness within the Black community. She began her mental health career working at UMMC in their mood and behavior lab in 2013. And since then, she's earned her master's degree in mental health counseling at Mercer University in Atlanta. And she's experienced multiple career experiences, including working in a hospital, working with private practices, and residential treatment settings for individuals with eating disorders. Most recently, she worked at a private practice in Jackson from 2019 to 2022, and she's currently pursuing her PhD in clinical psychology at my alma mater, the Jackson State University. And she wants to provide as many mental health services as she can to our community and others. And I am so excited and happy to welcome Charla. Charla, hey girl.
Hi, girl. Hey, thank you for having me, Jess. I appreciate it.
Listen, when I saw your research study, I was like, this is what I can get behind. This is something that I want to talk about. I just want to get inside your head with how you came to that topic. But for those of you all who don't know, Charlotte is doing some research with African American marriages, psychology aspects, which we'll get into. But I just want to straight off say that this topic interests me, number one, because I'm married. I'm a Black woman married to a Black man, and I love all things Black folks, especially drawing parallels to like what we see currently
Mhm.
and drawing it parallel to history. So, can you kind of tell me a little bit about how you came, well, a little bit about your background, but also how you settled on this particular research area?
Yes. So, like you said, I've worked in mental health really the last 10 years, which is really hard to believe time has gone by that fast. But I started off with my bachelor's in psychology, as most people do. But my interest was more so peaked in wanting to pursue counseling. I actually pursued a master's in counseling before going to psychology because I really kind of wanted to get more of the backstory behind how do people wind up in these circumstances. When I was at UMC, I was working in the mood and behavior lab with patients who were there for attempting suicide, which was
Okay.
really, really heavy, very awkward to go up to someone's hospital bed and say, hey, do you want to complete some surveys?
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting seeing people from all walks of life during that time who, by whatever circumstance had made that decision to attempt suicide. But it kind of made me want to know, like, okay, what happened before this? I
Mm-hmm.
don't want just the research on you. I want to figure out what are the things that led you to this point? What are the things in your family, in your history? Do you have certain behaviors where there's trauma, where there's substance abuse that led you here? And so that's kind of how I got into the counseling psychology world. And then after getting my master's, I was like, well, I kind of want to do a little bit more. I want to be able to educate future clinicians because I saw kind of I would say a deficit in seeing a lot of, women of color, men of color who are actually teaching in
Mm-hmm.
counseling and psychology fields. So I wanted to kind of have that opportunity and also be able to conduct research. So that's kind of how I got here in the
Yeah.
first place. But like you said, my research does focus on attachment. So attachment is I think I kind of learned about attachment maybe during my master's, and I just really fell in love with the concept of attachment and how it works. What are the things that kind of alter your sense of attachment? And I know a lot of people in general don't know what attachment is. So
Mm-hmm.
there's
And
that.
we'll get to that again. Like when y'all backstory, Charlotte and I were talking, and she sent me a link, and she was like, "Hey, can you complete this?" Blah blah blah. So when I read through it, I was like, "Wow, this is so needed." Because number one, you hear like internet chatter about when it comes to like Black people in their relationships, whether
Yes.
it's like I'm not getting married. Black women are the least married. Just all of
Yeah.
this chatter. And I feel like we have a little gender war going on.
Yeah.
So we talk about these things like based on our own personal experiences, our traumas, and our relationships. So I really thought number one, it's good to see someone who's actually going behind it. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, talking to the patients and really hearing their stories.
Mhm.
So can you kind of talk about what inspired this particular, well, can you introduce the study? Let's just start there.
Yes, and it's a long title, so forgive me for popping it up to read it because I'll be like, am I forgetting something? But my dissertation title is The Effects of Attachment on Perceived Stress, Health Status, and Marital Satisfaction in Black Marriages, looking at the moderating role of social support. All of those words are to say I'm looking at attachment style. So let me break down attachment. So
Mhm.
a lot of people don't know what attachment is or will know what attachment styles are, but attachment is literally how you are bonding with your caregiver. So as we are all adult seniors being babies, being infants, how your caregiver responded to your needs is how you build your attachment. So literally the bond between your caregiver, whether that was your biological mom, whether that, was within another circumstance, are they attending to your needs regularly? Are they delayed in their attending to your needs and they don't attend to you as you have needs or as you're crying, or it's inconsistent. Sometimes you're really readily available, sometimes you're not. So the experience that we have of how our caregivers attend to our needs initially builds the foundation of basically how we emotionally receive the world and people around us. So, say for example, and there are three attachment styles that I look at specifically. I look
Mhm.
at secure attachment style, I look at insecure anxious, and then insecure avoidant. So, how that breaks down is if you are securely attached, that means your caregiver, when you cried, when you were in need, when you were hurting, they regularly attended to you consistently, they met your needs, they comforted you, consoled you, fed you, etc. If you are insecurely, anxiously attached, there might be some inconsistencies with how that person was able to meet your needs. They may not have come readily when you cry. Maybe you had to self-soothe and sometimes they're right there as soon as you started crying. So you learn to again perceive the world as I don't really know what I'm gonna get. It makes you inherently your foundation is anxious because I don't
Mhm.
know when you're coming. I don't know when you're leaving. I don't know when you're coming back. I don't know if my needs are going to be met. I don't know if they are. So that creates anxiety. And then the insecure avoidant is, oh, I might meet your needs, but I'm not really comforting you a whole lot. I'm a little distant. A professor gave a really great example of she had a woman that she was helping to build the attachment with her baby. She was stacking diapers up in a stack and would lay the bottle on top of the diaper so that it would fit into the baby's mouth. And she didn't have to hold
Mm.
the baby to feed the baby. So things like that are disrupt or change the way we perceive the world and the way we perceive people and the way we anticipate how people are going to meet us and meet our emotional needs, which directly translate. There's a direct connection to attachment and how you view attachment in your romantic relationships. And so that's what my study focuses on. So initially, you are asked to identify which of those three attachment styles do you most feel like matches how you feel in your romantic relationships of those three.
I'm curious to know, like, you're making me kind of think back to my time in graduate school,
Yes.
when you're trying to like build these theories and discover your research. When you were looking at attachment, like, what is your area about marriages, or or Black marriages specifically, or did that theme emerge as you were looking at ways to approach attachment?
Yes, I think it starts with the research, right? So when you're looking for your topic or dissertation topic or just areas of interest, you look at what is the research saying that's available, right?
Mhm.
So the research about Black marriages is we're most likely to be divorced. We have a 50% divorce rate. We are most likely not to marry. We're most likely, if we even do get married, we're most likely to divorce amongst all other ethnicities. So I think that really piqued my interest because it's like, okay, well, and I feel this way about a lot of research within the Black community and focusing on Black population. There's always these statistics of this is bad, this isn't good, this isn't healthy,
Yes.
this isn't, whatever. But no one's looking at why. And so what piqued my interest is no one is looking at why are these things happening? what are the factors that are affecting the people who do decide to get married? How are they staying together? Or why are they deciding not to stay together? What are the reasons behind that?
This is
Instead of just
so
being married.
good.
Yeah,
It's
so
so good. I'm one of those people where you can ask like my husband, I think everything is because of slavery. Like
yeah.
to me, everything. And so like when I hear like I mentioned your gender wars on
Mhm.
online and how people are talking about black relate or how relationships are talked about in the black space. Not that people are have specific podcast or whatever about black marriages, but just the way that we talk about them. And you kind of see that in those conversations too. Like there are rarely like these people that are shouting from the rooftops, I love my husband, I love my wife. And people immediately say, no, you don't. No, you didn't. Or you were like Tabitha Brown, for example, when she
Mhm.
had put out that she retired her husband, there was this whole thing about that when in reality, marriage is such it's really a sacred thing. So to see and sacred in that when we do struggle in our marriages, we don't always talk about it. Or if we struggle and there's a couple that divorce, they may have that trauma that they bring on when they're having their discussions. So I appreciate this research because as you said, sometimes when you're going through things, there's a why that's even
Mhm.
bigger than what you think it is.
Yeah. Exactly. And so it kind of piqued my interest. And like you said, a lot of things historically go back to slavery within the Black community, and especially with relationships, especially with the idea of marriage. Like you said, marriage is a sacred bond that for many years we did not have, or if we did have it, I'm losing my husband because he's sold somewhere and my family is separated and I'm not able to, the idea of securing your bond and attending appropriately to your child, especially within the Black community, is often lost because we don't have time to, or we don't have
Mhm.
the resources to, or we often, and I hear this all the time and I hate when people say this now, oh, they're not going to remember that. Oh, that baby's not going to remember
Mhm.
that. The kid's not going to remember this. They're not. And I'm like, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
So I think historically we have not been taught to prioritize the bond within, how am I attending to my child? What does this look like? How consistent am I? Are their needs being met? In what ways are their needs being met? That kind of thing, rather than, well, you have food, I'm gonna give it to you when I give it to you, well, that affects, how they are then perceiving because then they don't expect you to come readily. So then they don't expect anyone to come readily. So then they don't expect people to come readily. So when they come and get into a relationship and this person's wanting to show them all this love, it's like,
Right.
whoa,
Right.
like you're doing too much,
Right.
because that's not their experience. So it really truly starts in that foundational bond of attachment between your caregiver. And when you think about again, like adoption or foster care or, kids that have a lot of disruption, especially in those early years of development, it affects how they emotionally respond over their lifetime.
Yeah, so this research is good for the couple, but also if they're parents as well.
Yes.
One thing we try to be so mindful of what we say around our children, how they see us interact with one another because of this very thing. And even as you're talking about it, it's making me think about, well, what did I see, growing up and how much of that really is impacting my marriage today.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I kinda went straight to mental health, but aside from mental health, are there any other aspects of health that you're looking at? And how I guess, what are you really looking to find? I know you said how it plays out in the relationships, but are you trying to reach a certain conclusion, or is this work building on other work?
Yeah, so in this study, this is for my dissertation. So I am looking at, again, within the Black community, how does your health status affect maybe your marital satisfaction? How does it affect your stress level if you are experiencing stress? And also, how does all of those things affect your overall marital satisfaction? So it's so many variables. So I'm looking at health status, perceived stress, attachment, marital satisfaction, and I'm also looking at the presence of social support. And I'm looking at that specifically as a moderating variable. So I'm looking to see if a person, for example, has significant social support. You have a big community. You have a lot of people you can lean on outside of your marriage. How does that then make you feel more satisfied in your marriage because you have other?
Mhm.
Or does it do the opposite? Do you feel like, well, I'm less satisfied in my marriage because I have all this other outside social support? And I'm looking at that specifically within the Black community because of community. I think we culturally rely a lot on our community. We rely a lot on external, extra family members, extended family members. Even if you don't have the best positive relationships with your family, there's still a system, a village, so to speak, that you look to. Whether that's a godmom, an auntie, auntie that's your mom's best friend, it's not really your auntie, that kind of thing. So how does social support impact what we are experiencing in our marriage? So is community really something that's a necessity, for support in within that marital scope?
And this is just giving the numbers to the conversations, like
Mhm.
kind of like how we're talking about reparations and things like that. And people love to have that conversation and they're not actually looking at the numbers.
Yes.
So I really like this because it can debunk a lot of
Mhm.
information that's just not true. And it may be causing people to say, hey, I don't want that. I don't want to be married. I don't want
Mhm.
to, because they're not understanding all the factors that may go into why a person is unhappy in their marriage. And it's not always just that their partner is quote unquote bad, but
Right.
it could very well be due to systemic things that we're
Mhm.
dealing with that
Mhm.
just have never been talked about.
Exactly.
So I know that you're like developing this research, but you're also, I'm sure, building on some things that are already out there or research that has already been published. Have you
Right.
seen anything, not necessarily conclusive,
Yeah.
but what have you like found as you're working on this?
So what's interesting is that a part of my PhD program, I had to do what really is a thesis project, which is a smaller study. So I built a smaller study based on attachment, marital satisfaction amongst Black marriages again. And I did this study maybe 2 years ago. I collected this data, but I was looking more of gender differences. Are
Okay.
Black men or Black women happier in their marriages? And if so, what attachment style do they have? And within that, other personality factors is what I kind of pulled out of that study. And so I found that men were more satisfied, Black men were more satisfied in their marriages than Black women, which is
I
what I,
believe that.
yeah, which is what
I
I,
can believe that. Yeah.
and it's interesting. And I'm looking at specifically which attachment style is more correlated to higher marital satisfaction or lower marital satisfaction. And so in the research, insecure attachment, insecure, anxious, no, I'm sorry, insecure avoidant is most linked to lower levels of marital satisfaction. So if you're already coming with, again, that insecure, avoidant attachment is difficult for me to connect to people. I'm more kind of pulling away from others. I'm not like their experiences, their partner almost wants more and more and more. And where are you? Why can't you tell me this? Let's talk about our feelings. And you're pulling away and pulling away and pulling away. So that's
Mm.
what insecure avoidant looks like. And that is the attachment style that is most linked to lower marital satisfaction. And it was also linked to personality factors. So in my thesis, I looked at the big five, what we in psychology call the big five personality factors: neuroticism, openness, agreeableness. I should know the other five, but I know the bigger ones because they're the
Yeah.
ones that are related. But anyway, so insecure avoidance is also most linked to a neurotic personality type, which is most linked to a lower satisfaction. So again, like we're looking at those levels underneath,
Hmm.
the line. Like you can
So
say,
it so that kind of sounds like some marriages may fail or be in a bad place. It is not even always the spouse.
right, right.
Crazy.
Yeah,
And
sometimes
like that, but to see it reflected in data is a totally different
it's
thing,
a
you know?
different thing because we hypothesize stuff all the time, in research studies, whatever. But it's what you find. It's like, oh, like, hmm. And I think it was it agreeableness? I think agreeableness was most linked to secure attachment, which is also most linked to higher marital satisfaction. So, it makes sense in your
Mhm.
mind, but when you're seeing it and you think about people that you know who are more distant, who it's very difficult for them to be vulnerable and to receive support. And receive love and receive care and things like that as a person, how does that then affect the relationship? Even if they're in a relationship, they decided to get married, whatever, those factors still exist. So
Mhm.
it's really looking at like what is happening, like you said, within the marriage. It's not always, I think people automatically assume, no, it's cheating, it's, infidelity. I think people automatically assume infidelity or money issues with divorce. And a lot of times it's a lot of undercurrents within there. So looking at, how does your own, like you said, with your parents, what was modeled to me? How has that
Mhm.
impacted my view on marriage? Am I like, yes, I really want to get married because my parents were married and they had a beautiful marriage? Or sometimes my parents were married and they've been married my whole life and they have a horrible marriage and I don't ever want to get married.
Right.
So a lot of people are like, oh, well, you come from a two-parent household. It depends on what type of two-parent household you come from.
Yeah, and this is a child of divorce. I always thought like, two parents is better than one.
Mhm.
Like, just because it's not something that I had during the years when I would say that I kind of wanted it and needed it the most. And so now that I'm married and I'm like, "Ooh, this get hard." I'm seeing that sometimes you do it just that's not a you can't just get away with being 2 parents in a household. Like, it's more than it. It
It's
is
more
at work because you could still mess up your kids that way too. So it just
exactly.
gives you all these different nuances and things that
Mhm.
you don't think about until you're really, really in it. So, like, I know that this study is, or you're in the process of collecting this data. How long are you going to be collecting it? And do people still have an opportunity to complete a survey if they want to be part of it?
Yes, please, please complete the survey. I need, because again, data is what drives any research. So any of the thing,
Mhm.
all the things that we know about health, mental health, whatever it is driven by people completing studies and completing surveys. So yes, anyone that is wanting to just answer the questions and is just curious about what it looks like, learning more about attachment, please feel free to complete the study. Then my email is also on the flyer. So a lot of people, once they complete it, they're like, what are you really looking at? What are these studies? Can you tell me more about attachment XYZ? I'm happy to please delve into it. I could talk about it all day. So people have all the opportunity to complete it. I'll be collecting data really over the next year
Okay.
with like the dissertation studies and how you design a study. You have like an ideal sample size
Mhm.
that I need to reach. So my sample size is about 115 that I need to gather to see a significant sample size to see what are really the trends here. So that is my projected sample size, but I would love to have more than that.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna get way more than that. I learned recently, I don't know if you know Kia Jones, but I was speaking with her about a month or so ago, and she was explaining to me like how there is a lack of like research for African Americans in so many aspects of health. And so
Yes,
when you sent it over, I was like, I'm doing it. I don't care because we need more Black folks to participate in
me
research.
too.
Like, what have you had a difficult time recruiting participants?
Yes. So
Really?
yeah, so well, not so much now. Now it's starting off, and I think I learned from doing my thesis project, kind of, okay, this is a better way to gauge people and to just send it out and things like that. So the last study I completed, I had about 70, 75 participants. And because it was a pilot study, I did not need a certain necessarily amount
Mm,
a projected sample size. I didn't need that, but for this one I do. But there are, like you said, there are huge gaps in research on Black population, especially Black marriage, which I found because, of course, you read all the research that's out there to see, like, am I duplicating the study? What did they find? Blah, blah, blah. There is virtually no study that's looking at Black marriages, attachment, marital satisfaction, and any kind of health related variables. There's virtually nothing really. I'm not gonna say there's nothing, but it's a very,
nothing,
very
yeah.
small percent of the research that focuses on our population. And again, with our health disparities. So I am looking at perceived stress because again, in the Black community, we get all these large percentages of health issues, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, all of these things that people, scream and shout about. But again, why? What are we
Mhm.
looking at? Why are these numbers so high within this community? How do health issues affect our relationships? How do they affect our community? Because again, if you're having health issues, of course that's going to increase your stress. That's also going to affect your relationship with your partner if you have one. And it would in turn affect either how your community shows up for you or how they don't. So there's
Mhm.
no research on looking at how those things, the interplay of those variables. So I really wanted to look at, again, because we are so affected by a lot of health issues because of the disparities in the resources and health insurance and quality providers in our
Girl, the
community.
list. The
It's like we need
list.
to look at like, okay, well, how is this affecting our relationships? How is this affecting our partnerships? Does this then affect our kids and what their experiences are that then affects their relationships? It's such an overflow, trickling effect, but no
And
one's
it's
looking at it.
and it's and that's what I was just about to get to. Like it's making me think like, Jessica, you have these big whole desires for the Black community and you're going to fix all the problems, but you really can't fix it until you have a good understanding of what's going on.
Yeah,
So this research is so important. I'm glad to say that I am part of this groundbreaking research
so
for
happy.
Black marriages. I will be sharing a link to the survey in the description box of this video. Please share this video with your friends, especially your married friends. Tell
Very
them to share it so that we can get that sample size where it
yes,
needs to be and beyond.
please,
Do
because
you
it is
have any? Yeah, I
interesting.
was just gonna ask if you had anything else you want to share with the audience.
Do I have anything? Yes. So also for people who are just curious, I know some again, like within the Black community, we do not talk about attachment style. We do not think of it. We do not work from that perspective at all. So I would just really, 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 really encourage anybody to just do a quick Google search or a quick
Mm.
even attachment quiz on what your attachment style is, especially if you're married or partnered or in a relationship or want to be in a relationship. Either way, it is good to just know your attachment style. So you can do a quick attachment style quiz, Google it, do whatever, on the internet for it that's free and available to you. But it is so important to know, how do you emotionally relate to other people? How do you experience your relationships? Because there you will see a big pattern.
Yeah,
You take the time, you will see a pattern in how you relate to others. Or this partner really worked for me because they really like pulled a lot of things out of me and made me be vulnerable and da da da. But that's because of your attachment. So again, figuring out the spaces really where you feel safe. That's really what attachment is. Where are the spaces that I feel safe? What makes me feel emotionally safe? Which makes me feel more emotionally like threatened and I want to run away.
mhm.
So those are things that any individual person should know about themselves. So I definitely, definitely, definitely think everybody should look at attachment research, attachment quiz, just knowing a little bit about it will really go a long way. And of course, go to therapy. Go to
Yes,
therapy.
go to therapy.
Find the therapist. It does not have to be me. You do not have to come sit on my couch, but I'm going to sit on anyone's couch, giving it a chance, talking out how you've experienced your life, even if you feel like there's nothing wrong with me. Nothing has to be wrong with you to go to therapy. It's a support, just like talking to a friend, just like talking to a loved one, just like talking to someone who cares about you. Please go and just find out more about yourself. You're in the longest relationship you're ever going to have with yourself. So
And
please,
speaking of that, I watched Blink twice on Amazon. So you're probably gonna know what I'm about to bring up. But the character, I can't even think of her name now, but the main character,
woman,
Frida, there was a point in the movie where she tells Slater King, who's played by Channing Tatum, like that she didn't believe in therapy because, like, why am I going to pay somebody to tell them like all the bad stuff that happened to me? So for people who are kind of hesitant, and I know you said there doesn't have to be anything wrong, but can you just kind of share just a little bit about, like, for people that may be on the fence or intimidated by the idea of therapy, how to kind of get over that and see the bigger picture at hand.
right. How do I explain? All the time, I wish I could record a therapy session, like a real one, and just live stream it. I really wish I could because that's the easiest way to show people how it works. So, how do I say this? Therapy is not magic. Okay. Therapy is not magic. No one, You're not coming in there and someone's solving your problem. Okay. That's not what's happening. They're not giving you advice. That's not what's happening. Therapy, someone, you are coming in to someone who does not know you. They don't know anything about where you're from. They don't know your household. They don't know your parents. And you are telling them your life from your perspective. I'm giving you all the things that happened from my perspective. So based on what you're telling me, I'm able going to be able to pull out certain trends of, well, it seems like when you get overwhelmed, you do this. It seems like there's a pattern that you've experienced of people who really don't honor your boundaries. And you let them not honor your boundaries. What can we do about this? Because you don't like that. So if you're giving someone almost like a backstage pass, is what I call it, into your life. You're giving them your view, your perspective, but they're able to take certain notes and see certain trends and pull out certain things that you're not able to see because you're in it. They like that
Mhm.
phrase of like you're too close to it to see it. You're too close to really see yourself objectively. So
Do
all
you
there is like showing you that a different view of yourself.
do you have any therapists that you would recommend? I guess in the Jackson area, you how so I'll let you share how people can reach you, but aside from you, like do you know any males, maybe like black males?
Yes. So I will recommend Marriott Counseling Services. They are a large private practice, a black-owned private practice in the Jackson area. They service children, families, individuals. I would also recommend Resilience Counseling. They're also black-owned in the Jackson area. Both of them, I think, accept all major insurances. I also have self-pay options if that's something you're interested in. Looking at resources, therapyforblackgirls.com is a website. It will show you all the providers in your area, regardless of what state you live in. Psychology Today will also do the same. You can put in what your insurance is. If you're looking for a provider that specializes in a certain type of therapy, it will pull up everybody in your area that's available to you.
And
So,
what about people who don't have health insurance? What can they do? Can therapy still be accessible for them?
yes, of course. So if you do not have insurance, there are what we call sliding scales available. So some you may go into an office and they're like, oh, it's $200 for an appointment. You might be like, okay, bye, because I can't afford that. If you ask,
Mhm.
hey, do you offer a sliding scale? A sliding scale is a slightly discounted rate that providers can offer if you do not accept insurance and they want to pay out. So that is something that you can ask for. If you're not insured, you're looking for something that's more affordable.
Okay, perfect. So if they say, look, I don't need to look on therapy for black girls. I don't need to go to psychology today. I want to see you. How can they find you and book an appointment?
So I'm on Instagram. I have a therapy page on Instagram. It's at checkin dot with Char with WITHCHAR. So I will link that also below, and then I have a link to book with me. I personally do not accept insurance, so I have a flat rate cash price amount for any session that you do with me. I do individuals and couples, and I offer virtual sessions. So if you are looking for someone in the area that's flexible, that you don't want to go through insurance, you can come see a girl. And I will give just my information. So you all have the link to the site to book and also my Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charla. This has really been, you've just given me so much to think about. And I know this is not going to be the last time we talk
Yes,
because I am interested in hearing once you've collected your data, like what's
me
next
too.
and what we're doing from there. And even if, it's anything that I can be helpful with or,
Yes.
just let me know. I really appreciate your time.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me, Jess. I love this chat. We need to do more of it.
Yes. Yes, we do. All right. Well, I'll talk to you later. Don't
Okay.
hang up. Okay. Yeah.